All right. So we are going to be talking about SCORE, preparing to tell stories that connect, inform, and sell. So this is a formula that you can really use in any kind of introduction. You can always tailor it to the situation that you're in, but I like to say that this thing has 5 ingredients in it, and it helps you to tell some of your most memorable stories, to be able to tell them over and over again. And it gives you the chance to talk about the struggle that you went through, how you saw a path or a solution when other people didn't, how you took a measured leap of faith that paid off in the moment that you knew it was all worth it. So I like to think about it in these terms. Now, how many of you have a story that you tell about yourself frequently? Anybody have a story? Amanda? Okay. Tell us a little bit about this story that you tell about yourself.
Well, usually I'm talking to another entrepreneur and it's a situation where they might be trying to make the leap. And so I describe my transition from corporate to entrepreneurship and just some of the challenges that I had and some things that I did, because sometimes I think people can relate to where I was and where I am. And I think it gives them a sense of, oh, I can do this, So it's just a way to relate to them. I'm not saying, look what I did, but just helping them see there's a path, you can do it.
Yeah. So you have a story that you use to encourage them, to show them, hey, I went through this and here's the challenge that I was having and here's how I overcame it. And now look at me, basically. Now I'm a successful business owner, blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So all of us have memorable stories. And when we think about introducing our business, one of the memorable stories that you can tell is it can be something where you're encouraging other people, like Amanda was bringing up. It could be something like, well, here's how I got into business. And so if you don't have a story that's popping up for you right now, I want you to think about the story about how you got into business. And the SCORE story model is a great structure to walk through. So let me tell you what SCORE stands for. S is for the situation. What is the overarching situation that happened? And so I'll walk through this with a story that I tell frequently. It's what I call the building I wasn't looking for, the VIP center. I wasn't looking for that building. And if you've heard me talk about it before, the story is very similar every time. So the situation was that, I was running a successful coaching and consulting business. And one day, January 2018, I got a God memo and God told me that I have a building for you. And that's not what I wanted to hear. So that's the first step of this structure is what's the situation? And you can tell it in 60 seconds or less. You can even probably tell it in 30 seconds or less. So the next piece, which is probably the longest piece of this, you want to be able to tell this in about a minute if you can, maybe 90 seconds. But the C stands for conflict or challenge. What was the challenge that you were having with this situation, or what was the conflict that was going on? And so I normally like to advise that you give 3 bullet points or less in this, 3 talking points or less. So usually when I'm telling my building story, I tell people, you know what, I was doing fine financially. I didn't want the overhead, and that's why I wasn't too thrilled about this. And honestly, I wasn't sure how I was going to be able to finance this. I already had a successful business, and adding this was going to just add more to my plate, I felt like. And the truth is I wasn't sure that I was going to be successful. I didn't know how it was going to be and how it was going to work. So that was my conflict or challenge. So we go into the third step. Well, what was the outcome? What path did you take? What solution did you see? And so I usually give this answer in a variety of ways, but basically I let people, well, I finally said yes to the Lord, and ultimately I did find the building. You know, when I walked into this building, I wasn't really sure about what the VIP center was going to be about, but the moment I walked in, I knew instantly. I started looking at the rooms, I could start to visualize it, and I knew that she was the one. The VIP center was the one. She was the vision in progress. And so what did I realize about this? That's the third step, the R, the realize. What was your realization, or what was your revelation? I realized that I had to do this, and I could do this. And I realized that God had actually been answering my prayers, that I was going to have the ability to reach more women and inspire and encourage them. And it was through the VIP center. So that was my realization. So you see, it doesn't have to be really complicated, but what makes it complicated for us is that we feel like everybody has to know every single detail. And they don't have to in this first introduction. You know, you want, if you're being interviewed, for example, you want the interviewer to say, oh my gosh, that's so interesting. Tell us more about this. And so you get invited to tell more about it. Okay, so just to recap, here are the steps. Situation. Step 2 is identify the conflict or the challenge. Number 3, what was the outcome? You know, what did you end up doing? And then 4 is realize. What did you realize as a result of all this? Or what was your revelation? Okay. So I want to give you 5 minutes to jot down some things for each one of these steps. And I want you to have the goal in mind that you don't want to go over 2 minutes in telling this story. Okay. So I'm going to set the timer for 5 minutes, and you all can start creating your story. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to let the timer run for the 2 minutes, because we want to try to be able to tell our story within 2 minutes. And if the bell rings and you're still talking, you just know that you need to start bringing it all the way to the end of the model. And just as a reminder, when you're telling your story, you're giving an overview of the situation, you're telling the conflict or challenge, you're giving the outcome, you know, what path did you take, and what did you realize? All right. So who would like to be the first one out of the gate to do their story? It looks like Amanda Gleason is saying yes, she wants to be number 1.
I am still typing.
Oh.
I could do it off the cuff if nobody else is ready.
Do it, Amanda. Come on.
All right. Thank you, Rachel. All right. So I worked in corporations for several years in an administrative positions, but I wanted something more. And so I'd returned to school, and so I returned to school, landed my first HR position, and I really loved it. I felt like I was at home. This is the career that I was meant to have. But after several years in HR, staff, and leadership positions, I was struggling with wanting to progress in leadership, but I really no longer wanted to be in the corporate environment. I had always dreamed of having my own business, but I really wasn't sure where to start. So I'd been successful in my HR career, and as I was searching for what kind of business could I run if I had one, of course, the light bulb went on, and you do what you know. So I decided I was going to try to freelance as an HR independent contractor. And so again, really was doing this blindly, didn't know where to start, but I started putting myself out there on LinkedIn. I talked to my current employer, let them know what I was doing. They were incredibly supportive. And so I started making small moves, started doing research and making small moves to position myself to be able to do what at that point, I thought I was going to do independent contracting on my own. So I was just going to contract myself out to different employers for various things, HR. What I didn't know was that God had a bigger plan for me and connected me with Angie Nuttle through LinkedIn, and landed my first independent contractor position. And from there, really, I started learning about how to run a business, how to grow a business. I could do more than be an independent contractor. I could have independent contractors working for me. And so what the success of that is I was able to gradually learn and build my business at the same time. And it has been an incredibly rewarding experience. And I feel like I've come a long way from where I started. Was that the timer?
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Good job, Amanda Gleason. Yeah, that was right at 2 minutes telling your story. So good job. Anybody, what did you notice about Amanda's story? Anything stand out to you about what she said?
I liked how you said that you thought you were going to follow a path and you led somewhere else. And so you showed that you were willing to go in a different direction, that when you're looking at the hierarchy of needs, I don't know if that actually fits on the hierarchy, but it shows that you understood people change their minds without judging. I don't know if judging is the word term.
So I just want to say, Amanda, you followed the model perfectly. You had just the right amount of information. It kept the interest and it wasn't too bogged down, which was really important. So, and there's a reason why we say you need to be able to tell your story in a couple of minutes, just a core story in a couple of minutes, because usually after about 2 minutes that people's minds start wandering, so you want to get the most important pieces in and create that interest so that they can come back and invite you to say more. So, I could easily take that situation and, hey, what were some of the things that you realized you didn't want to do? So anybody can come in and just ask some really interesting questions because you just didn't give them a whole greasy buffet of data. So good job. Okay, who wants to go next?
I can go next.
All right, Deetra, let me set the timer and let me know when you're ready.
Wait, I gotta breathe. Because it's on 2 different pages. I kind of cheated a little bit from yesterday, but I can't read my writing, but I'll figure it out.
Okay.
Okay.
Go.
So I was a 20-year corporate HR professional who was burnt out and resigned from my role. So, oh shoot. Can we pause?
Okay, we'll start over.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry, because I have it on 2 different pages and I'm like, wait, was that the S? Was that the R? I was supposed to give you the title too, wasn't I?
No, you don't have to give us you don't
I'm just gonna
just walk through the model. I mean, if you want to, you're going to say, hey, here was my situation when I started business. I mean, you can even use the words and integrate them in. Or you can just walk right through. So totally up to you.
Okay, got it. Okay, we'll start over. Sorry. Woo, take 2.
Okay. Go.
Okay. So the situation was I was a 20-year corporate HR professional who was burnt out and resigned from my role. Some challenges I was facing was, do I just take a break? Do I return to corporate HR, the only world that I knew? And I was a certified coach, but I had no idea how to turn that into a full-time career. So after much tears, prayer, journaling, talking to people I trusted, I stepped out on faith, trusted God, and said yes to launching a full-time coaching career. what I realized, everything that I needed was on the other side of yes. And God has literally provided everything that I need to build a business, work in my business. So saying yes to God was exactly my next step.
Okay. That was exactly 1 minute. 1 minute. So you really got it in there. So what I would tell you, just giving you some feedback, I love your story. I would give a little bit more meat about, around the conflict and challenge and the outcome, as a result here, or even the realization as a result today, I'm working with HR professionals. And so you can add a little bit more meat to it if you want.
In which area? Like you said in the
well, so your situation, I might say I think that you articulated your situation. It was really clear that it wasn't happening in your corporate job. You didn't want to do that anymore. I think your conflict and challenge, that was pretty laid out. I think the outcome and the realization, that's where you can add some more meat. So as a result of this, I took a leap of faith and I started my own coaching and consulting firm. And what I began to do was I began to figure out what my path was. And I realized that I had such a heart for HR professionals, that those are the people that I wanted to focus on. Now, I do one-on-one coaching. I also do group team building sessions as well, but I'm also a speaker. So I love speaking to HR professionals and inspiring and encouraging them. So it's just, adding a little bit more meat about your business.
Okay. And I'm like super wordy and have a million stories. So I think I was really trying to narrow it down.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
okay.
you're keeping it to one story, but you're just elaborating on, in terms of, you told the path that you took, and your realization is, I realized that I could do this. And so here's now what I'm doing. I'm providing this service. I'm doing this. I work with people this way. So you're feeding into what you're actually doing now.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Let's go on to the next one. Who wants to go next?
I'll try to go since I'm getting ready to start driving.
Okay.
Okay. And so my notes, I can't follow them because they're all dribble drabble. They're not even bullet points. So I'm going to just try. Okay.
Okay.
Try means to struggle. So I'm going to do it. Okay.
You're going to do it. And you know who you are.
Yes. So the situation is I come from a very loving home. And so I did not experience a lot or if any rejection in my home. And I always aspired to be a performing artist. And I told myself that I was going to become this superstar. And when I wasn't on the road, I would do hair and I would have a backup plan of nursing. Well, I ended up becoming the nursing is my bread and butter now. I did get a cosmetology license and I did go on to record CDs, songs, all kinds of things. I walked across the stage at the age of 17 after giving birth to my son, who is now a pilot. But needless to say, back to nursing, that was my bread and butter. I became successful and I didn't realize how good of a nurse I was. And I realized that I love what I do. However, I realized that in corporate America, there was not necessarily a place really for the minority nurse. And just fast forward, after many challenges, that was the conflict, right? So different challenges, but the outcome fast forward is that now I'm a nurse practitioner And because I've always aspired to be a performing artist and to just be out there, eventually I wanted to become I aspired to be a motivational speaker. And so I will always be at networking events, and I will always just be meeting people who would empower me and things of that nature. And so in that, yeah, so the realization is that now I am a business owner of Rain IV Therapy, and it has been the most successful. Yeah, I'm like, oh my God. Oh, I don't know. I don't know what it is when it comes to me putting together stories.
No, it's okay. So you worked really hard to walk through the model, and I want to give you some tips to help it to be even more clear. So if I'm listening to your whole story, I might start off with a big statement that says, before when I was a kid, I always aspired to be a performing artist. So you started off with some context about what you're about to talk about. I've always aspired to be a performing artist. And as a kid, I was into all kinds of things. I was singing, I was doing this, that, and the other. And the challenge with that, is that life wasn't exactly working out that way for me. At 17, I walked across the stage and graduated, pregnant with my son, who is now a pilot, by the way, and that stood out. And so I had a number of challenges. So, once that happened, part of the conflict also was I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, but I did know I wanted to do everything. And so I got into nursing. I love motivational speaking. I like to minister through song. I love doing all of these things. So, but what I ultimately chose to do was to become a nurse. And that was something that I absolutely knew that I was going to do. That was an outcome of what I was going to do. And as a result of that, I still dabble in all of those things that I mentioned, but because I love nursing, I started the business Rain IV Therapy. And the beautiful thing about this, what I've realized about being in this business, is that I can help people to feel healthier in a matter of seconds. So it's really, you're taking them through more of a structured story, but you don't have to throw in, as much detail as you have. It's really, for you, it's about thinking about the order of things and not getting hung up in, oh man, yeah, I was pregnant at 17 and that was really rough. So it's really just kind of doing a drive-by of that and getting to your goal, which is the IV Rain therapy. That's what you're talking about in this situation. You want them to know about that.
Okay. And so where would the part of the challenges in nursing fall? Like,
well, I would say that that would probably be that'd be in the conflict or challenge. So, so you might not choose to focus as much on the kids stuff, right? You might just say, hey, I've always aspired to be a performing artist. And so as a kid, I was always dabbling in everything. But ultimately, when I grew up, I decided that I was going to go into nursing. So you just get right to that story. Well, the challenges with being in nursing was A, B, and C. And ultimately, what I ended up doing was this. I started this business. I didn't see the opportunities in the regular channels of nursing. And so I chose to take this business ownership path. And what I realized in that is this is what I was really meant to do. This is where I really feel like I'm making a difference. So it can be like curtailing how much you tell about the childhood at that point, but leaving it open so that somebody say, oh, well, that's interesting. So what happened in your childhood? You want to give them some space to do that.
Right. Okay. Thank you. So helpful.
Okay. All right. Who wants to go next?
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
So if an interviewer starts to take you in a conversation direction that really doesn't have anything to do with your business, should you allow that, or how do you bring it back around to current situations?
Yeah, so it's a trick that happens all the time. I mean, I've learned this just from doing radio, that they'll ask these weird, really personal question. I mean, and you can simply respond with, that's a great question. However, the bigger challenge is this, and then you just redirect it back. It could be, well, I would love to tell you about that, but we would be here all day. So let me just sum it up like this. So you can just take back that conversation. I've had that happen to me a number of times where they've wanted to dig in to an area that I didn't want to go. And I always say, that's a really interesting question. However, the bigger challenge is that I was struggling with this. And then I take it to a topic that I feel more comfortable with.
Thanks.
Right.
I got a phone call in the middle of our typing, so I didn't finish, but I can try.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, one second. I lost you guys. All right. So I was invited to see some financial information for my brother, but due to some things in my past, I was really skeptical and just knew he was involved in one of those things. The challenge, though, was that I was struggling at my job at a local daycare, but I knew that a pay raise was out of the question since I was already one of the highest paid employees there, and I just didn't see any way of out of my situation. So I agreed to go to the information session, and I was really impressed by the information presented, especially something called the 45-year plan, which I recognized I was in the middle of, or at the beginning of, and that I didn't want my life to look like that. My realization was that if I wanted something different for my life, I needed to do something different. So I decided to join the Life organization, really dig into the information and the community that was available there. And the fact is that I came out of it with a realization that I'm worth more than a job. And I was able to dig out of credit card debt, student loan debt, car loans, and personal loans, and become financially debt free. And now I help people who are in the same situation recognize that they have a chance to, an opportunity to.
Okay. All right, very good. You got 35 seconds left. So I'd like to hear from the group. What stood out to you about that introduction?
I'm just happy it was under 2 minutes.
I feel like it was very informative and very smooth, but yeah, like it was very personable. Like she didn't stutter. It was very just fluid. That's a great word, fluid. I love the way you just flowed through each thing with no stopping. Like your story, basically.
Thanks.
Yeah, it was organized. I was following along, and I felt your conflict. I was like, ooh. And then I felt and saw and was able to even visualize, like, oh, all the things that you realized in the outcome. It was very believable.
I enjoy her voice. It's like a voice for a podcast.
So the one piece of feedback I would give you is I'd be careful about the indirect references that you make, because I got hung up on, well, I wonder what happened with the brother. So you want them to be focusing on you.
Okay.
And so maybe in that part where you're talking about, you were going to an information session, it was your brother doing it. And I think at that point you made a comment like, because of some stuff that happened, there was, I might change that up, because that's where I was like, oh, what happened?
That's what I was trying to not get into, because
right.
I could seriously go into all the background of why I was skeptical, but I'm like, no, I only got a minute 30, because I figured
right.
That I'd go over, you know.
Yeah, and it's okay to just say, I was skeptical.
But just cut due to stuff in my past. Okay.
Yeah, I would just say, I was skeptical about it. There are all the time, people are all the time trying to sell scams and everything. So I would just scoot on by that so that you can spend more time on like that ending that you had, that your outcome and realization, those were really good. That's where we want to get people to, is to focus on that. But you definitely have the smoothness. So you kind of walked right through it. So good job.
Thanks.
Okay, who's next?
I can go next.
All right, go ahead, Marty.
All right. So I was a homeschool stay-at-home mom, and my kids were moving from home to high school and to college. And I had no idea what I was going to do with this time that I had just been pouring all of my life into my kids. So I prayed and asked the Lord to show me what was next. What was hard about that is I had to realize that my life was shifting, seasons were changing, and I did not know my purpose, and I felt lost. I didn't have any goals because of that. I also was very fearful of knowing that I was living in this very comfortable bubble, and I didn't know how to. And after the prayer, God did send me an answer, and that made me further more uncomfortable, because then I didn't know how to start a business. But I began to listen and read information on how to start a business. As a result of that, I started to talk to people, which was very scary, to just come out and just say, hey, I want you to know that I have a vision now, and it is to start a business being a personal stylist. And after that, I started to invite a couple of friends to help me work on my process. And as a result of that, with my friends, I got to see the joy that they had on their faces after I finished this experience with them. And that literally was the game changer. It's when I knew this is exactly what I need to be doing, to be able to help women through by saving them their time and energy, by hearing them, hearing what their needs are, shopping for them, whether that was editing their closets, getting them styled. All of those things helped me to know what they needed and how to build their wardrobes. And that gave me purpose.
Okay. All right. Anybody have some feedback for Marty?
I think, Marty, you did a great job of, what stood out for me is I could really feel how you were feeling through the process. And I like that because it helped me connect to you. And I think you did a good job of laying out each of the steps. Like, I clearly understood what your struggle was, why you were in that struggle, and what you did to come out of that. I also think your story reveals vulnerability, because you talked about how hard it was to share your dream, because you were worried what, would people, would they judge me on that? Would they, reject me because of that? So I think it shows vulnerability. And then you showed kind of how you overcame and where you are today. So I think you did a great job.
Thank you.
Yeah. So one thing that I would say is so here's what you started doing. You started researching, you started talking to people, you started figuring out what you could do. So I think that piece just has to be simplified a little bit. And I would even throw in a line there. I realized that I did have a gift for putting clothes together and putting styles together. So, and I enjoyed that, but I really didn't realize how that could be a business until I got together with two friends, and just to see the joy on their face when I put their outfits together, and we started working on their confidence, their inside and outside confidence. So that is a point to bring up, because you want people to be really clear about what it is that you do.
Okay.
But definitely, very authentic, very real. The feedback that I'm giving you, it's just nitpicky. All right.
No, this is good, because I feel like what is my biggest problem is staying true to what I put on the paper. But that also helped me to know there was a part of my story. I just need to slide in that very first part of the situation that needs to be a part of it. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Yep. All right. Who wants to go next? Crystal.
I knew you was gonna call on me. I was bringing mine up. I'm like, let me bring up my little story. Goodness, okay. I was like, I gotta look at this and read it.
Okay.
So you guys probably heard a lot about this yesterday, but just pretend like you haven't.
We're pretending.
Yeah, so let me tell you girls about the position I didn't know I wanted or needed. So I have been working part-time with Angie at the VIP Center as an event coordinator. And one day on the way to work here, I received a little memo that says, you need to be here full-time. I was like, excuse me? No, I don't. It's like, I'm a paralegal. I'm not an event coordinator. It's like right now I'm working at a nonprofit organization. It's, fulfilling, it's rewarding, and it's just temporary until, I find another paralegal position, or maybe this will be full-time because I have this passion for this nonprofit. I was like, God doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm not hearing the voice of God. Couple days go by, next weekend, coming here to the VIP Center. Yep, you need to be here full time. No. I just keep hearing, no, you don't. No, you don't. And I was like, I've been hearing Angie tell me all the time that, you need to always seek God, wait for his answer, then respond. I was like, okay, let me do that. Praying to God. And I'm seeing this, conflict in me going, I don't know what I need to be doing. Should I be doing this, God? Why do I keep hearing this voice tell me I need to be at the VIP Center? I need you to be clear and direct with me. It's like, I need you to send me people to tell me clearly without me even saying anything to them. And one day I'm talking to my friend Linda, and she says, she goes, I see like you're doing good at the nonprofit. She's like, but I really see you needing to be in a place where you have leadership. She's like, you have visions and you're a visionary. And she's like, and you get things done. You need to have a position that you can tell people, hey, this is what needs to be done. And they act. And she's like, I don't know what it is about you that you can just light up a room. And she's like, and just get things done. And I'm like, okay, that's nothing like my job that I'm at right now. Talking with Angie about some conflict that I'm having at my nonprofit. And she tells me blatantly, well, when you're ready to listen, God, come talk to me. I'm like, what? She's like, come talk to me. When she's like, God's talking to you. She's like, I need to talk to you. So I take it to prayer again. And I'm like, what is going on, Lord? I just don't understand. It's like, there is no way that I am equipped to be an event coordinator. There is no way that I can, be at this VIP Center full time. I don't have the experience or knowledge to do this. He says, go talk to Angie. I'm like, okay. So I stepped out and said, yes. Okay, fine, Angie. I took that leap of faith. I told the nonprofit, I'm done. It's like, I am being called elsewhere. So I go talk to Angie. She's like, yep. She's like, I'm glad you're here. She's like, because I want you full time. You belong here. And I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, look at how everything is coming into play at this VIP Center. Who knew, right? I was like, because I had been going through the worst part of my life and I was just starting to get my life back. I went through 2020 without my son. He moved out. It's like pandemic hits. I'm dealing with empty nest. I was like, but here is the VIP Center. Who knew that was my calling? That was my place.
Okay,
so,
we got to hit time. We got to hit pause.
Oh goodness. I got to get that slower. Dang it.
All right. So I want to tell you a few things really quickly. It's an incredible story. And it's the kind of story that you would tell when you're being a speaker on a stage and you want to bring them in and relive it.
Mhm.
We have different kinds of speaking when you're talking. And so there's one, this kind of story that we're telling is more of a, hey, here's what happened. And we're outside of the story. We're almost like narrating the story versus telling it and reliving it.
Okay.
So you are a gal who does really well with just bringing people right into the moment and here's what she said and here's what I said, and you bring in the conversation. So for this kind of story, for the SCORE model, we want to just stay outside of the story. We want to stay outside and just give a few blurbs in it. So for example, at the beginning when you're setting the stage, it might be, I was working as a paralegal and in a nonprofit organization when God told me that he had something else for me. The challenge is I wasn't really believing that I was cut out to be an event coordinator and take on this position that God had for me, and so here's where you start to tell a little bit about the story. So I was praying about it. Angie was telling me that, when I was ready to listen to God, to come talk to her, but I really was confused. I felt like I wasn't really sure that this is what I was supposed to be doing. But ultimately, the outcome is I started listening to God. And as I was coming to the VIP center, I realized that I was really enjoying my work. The time was flying by, and I knew that God wanted me to come here full time. So that was my realization that I was meant to be here in a leadership position, and God had this opportunity for me. And so here I am helping women to do blah, blah, blah. Okay. So that is more of a narrator kind of introduction that we're looking for when you first meet someone and you're being interviewed, or you just got like a couple of minutes. Does that make sense? Yep. Okay. It's 12:59. I know we got a couple more to do. So who wants to go first okay, Kira, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I might as well take a shot at it.
Okay.
Okay, so I titled my story, I'm a great painter, but I'm not an artist. And so it goes like this. I picked up painting as a new hobby after a bad breakup in college. I was a broke college student. My major was health sciences, and I planned on working in health administration. But I was always like the artsy kid. I found peace by being in nature and creating art. So I just dove more into my painting. So my friends and family and my sorority members, they knew I was creative. So they asked me to create paintings for them and different types of projects. It was a good side hustle. I needed the money, and it allowed me to actually create art, which was a passion that I was developing. I kept painting, I fell in love with it, and soon I found what would be my calling. People began to ask me to use my gifts to create art in amazing ways. My art has allowed me to create murals throughout Indianapolis, exhibit at different galleries, and create paintings live at weddings and events. I get to use my art to help people celebrate their special day. What I now realize is that I am an amazing painter and I am an artist. I realize that my art is a gift that can help people feel joy. I want to share my art with the world and use my art as a way to make the world a more beautiful place.
Woo-hoo! Yeah. That is great. Very clear. You walked through everything, told us your story. That was excellent. That was excellent.
Yay, okay. At first I was like, what is this struggle? I couldn't think about like what the challenge was, but I think it was like me wanting to be an artist and like claiming that identity.
Yeah, your last sentence, you might make that more defined and just say, yeah, as a result, I do live wedding paintings for for couples during the reception and during, I mean, I might clean that up a little bit just to say, yeah, and so here's what I do. Here's what I do today as a result of that. Okay, so Victoria, you want to take a crack at it?
Yes, I think so. Okay. So my situation is that I grew up in a family with a strong and successful entrepreneurial mom who seemingly effortlessly created this business that helped fund my college education in the United States. I knew I've always had this entrepreneurial spirit in me, but I went up to still do the typical schooling that my parents paid for. But then I also went in to do video and photography as a second degree because I've always been fascinated with commercials. My challenge was start off when I was ready to start my business. I didn't realize how hard it is to start a business, let alone promote it. So I started researching and I found a lady that talked about how I can put together a photo session, so to speak. So I reached out to some hair makeup artists and wardrobe styling and created this huge campaign that could really easily pass as a Gucci ad campaign. So I really was like, oh, I can do this. And then I talked to a friend of mine that is also trying to promote that business. I was like, well, let's create some images together. So I got together the hair makeup artist and the wardrobe stylist, and we created beautiful images for her. She gave me feedback as to how she felt having been done up and dressed up and how effortlessly the whole session was, and also having images to create, to use to promote our images. And that's when I realized that this is what I'm meant to do. Helping women specifically because we wear so many different hats to effortlessly create images and content that we could use to promote our business while also making them feel and look beautiful.
All right, you still had 9 seconds left. Good job. All right. Anybody have any quick feedback?
I'll say that I liked how you brought in the part about how your mom was an entrepreneur and kind of your upbringing. I just found that interesting. It tells me a little bit more about who you are and
Yeah.
How you came to be, but you didn't spend a lot of time there. So you shared that. I think just the right amount of information about that.
Yeah.
And again, how you were going down one path, but you had this kind of creative idea or wanted to explore this creative side of yourself, which really turned out to be your passion in your business. So I think you did a good job of kind of leading us down that and then telling us where you are today. So I thought it was good.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would say just at the end, just a little bit more clearness in terms of what the end result was. Because I mean, something along the lines of, and so what I help women do now is through photography and through styling, I help them to discover their beauty on camera, or, so I think just being a little bit more clear at the end about what it is that you offer would be helpful. So.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Okay. All right, ladies. Well, that's all we have time for. So we didn't get to walk through the sales conversation, but I'll tell you what, we'll take a rain check on that for next week.
That's a really helpful session, Angie.
Yes.
Good. I'm glad that it is. I want you all to be successful. And I know that communication is a critical part of that, and the way that you communicate your business makes a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
All right, everybody.
Angie, I have a question really quick.
Yep.
Hey, and if we've already talked about this, maybe just refresh my memory. Have we ever talked about how to really operate as a CEO? Like maybe what are some mindset or like strategy steps to go from an employee to a CEO business owner? Or I don't know, maybe all these things help us to do that. I don't know. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, we haven't talked about that, but it's something that we can definitely work on. So I've made a note.
Okay.
And really what you're talking about is scaling your business so that you can eventually not be your own employee, that you're actually running the business versus working in the business so much.
That, and then just also too, like, I mean, I can't speak for everybody, but like, I literally worked for someone my entire career. So I know I'm over in this space, like doing everything myself. But even one day when I outsource or maybe even have an employee, am I really truly elevating my thinking to truly think, you know, as a CEO? Am I always thinking forward and strategic and looking at the higher picture? Especially sometimes when we're still doing everything, we still have to like touch down here. So
Okay.
Angie, are you okay if I email you a question later and ask you about a trademark?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you can email me anytime.
Thanks.
All right, well, I am gonna let you ladies go. I'm gonna be headed over to the VIP Center in just a little bit. So I will see you guys later.